Sometimes we struggle to figure out how to get the finances to do the prepping that we want to do. Well, today Karen Morse is back with us. Her book, Adaptive Prepping, goes through some great strategies to help you financially make it happen. Hey, Provident Preppers, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Kylene. Now, prepping can be a huge drain on your finances. And today we're going to talk about how not to allow the lack of funds to impact your ability to prepare for the future.
And I want to add here that the prepping can drain some of your resources, but only in the short run, because in the long run, you're going to be better off financially. And we are so excited, Karen, to have you back with us. We have loved your book, Adaptive Prepping, and there's so much good information in there. We had the first part of this a couple of weeks ago, and we loved it. And now we're jumping into part two. Don't forget, if you missed that first one, it's all about time and how to create the time to make this happen. Click the card in the corner. You can check that one out. But let's jump into this one today. This is more about the finances of prepping. So, Karen, if I didn't know better, I would say you were trying to take away our excuses, which is something we all need, right? This is something we all need. We all have excuses. And I think we mentioned before, they're like armpits. We all have them. They all stink. And so teach us, Karen, how we can manage this better.
Absolutely. So let me start by saying, guys, wherever you are, I have likely been there. We've run such a gamut in our marriage, from times we literally lived off of $1,200 a month with 2 newborns, to where we were living very comfortably and we had a decent amount of money set aside. So we have lived everything from very little to a whole lot. And right now we are back on the little end of things. And you know what? No matter what, you can do this. You can you can take care of your necessities and still have some money for prepping. And we're going to talk about different concepts today that are going to help you to have that money that you want to prep, and also to take care of the financial obligations that you have now that you might be struggling with. So let's talk a little bit about money woes. Did you realize that according to CNBC in 2019, 27% of adults would need to borrow or sell something to pay for an unexpected expense of $400 or more? 27% of adults would have to borrow or sell.
That is not a good place to be.
It is not a good place to be. And, I think probably many of us have found ourselves in that place at one point or another. So I don't want you to be discouraged, and I don't want you to despair. We're actually going to help you today find some margin, no matter where you are. So let's talk about things. I've also, even on my own website, when I ask people, what are your obstacles to getting prepared? Money is always number 1 or number 2 on that list. And so we're all struggling with it. So how do we change things around? First of all, you do want to find ways to manage your money better. And it comes down to that dreaded B word that we all hate, budget.
It has been a conflict in our relationship since the very beginning. And go ahead.
Because I'm the spreadsheet guy and I like making everything make sense. And anyway.
And he loves to count the numbers, and I don't.
Fortunately, I'm the one who manages the money, but I'm also the spender. So, good, bad, I don't know, because there's not conflict, but yeah, there are times when I could have managed things better. So talking about that a little bit, that dreaded B word, one of the things I want to encourage everybody is actually to change your perspective on it a little bit. Instead of saying, this is how limited I am, I want you to think of it as more, I get to tell my money what I'm going to do, where it's going to go, what it's going to be for. And if we can have a different perspective on it, it does help. Won't make everything go away. But I found that in my own heart that it does help if I can change the way that I look at that budget. And then one of the tools that I use personally for our budget, and honestly, it is a lifesaver. It's called YNAB. And I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it stands for You Need a Budget. And they make budgeting easy and in some ways even fun. And they give you so many tools within this one suite. And you can find it at ynab.com. So YNAB.com. That's all it is. So when you go there, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I feel like Paul when he says, I know how to abound and how to be abased. And YNAB actually helps me to find that place in the middle, to have the things that I need to do, but at the same time to be saving the money that I need to spend. So with YNAB, everything is so much easier. I start my month by going in and telling my money where it's going to go into all the different categories. And you can set it up for you. I set it up for me, and I set it up with all of my household expenses. So like if you have a rent or mortgage, property taxes, electricity, trash, sewer, water, wastewater, phone, all of that, I put in one category at the top. Then I have another category where we have reoccurring things like our car insurance or our homeowner's insurance, different insurances like that. I've got so many different things in there. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of them today. But one of the things is, like I say, start the month by going in and telling all of my money where it's going this month. Then what I do is when a bill comes in, then I go to YNAB and I tell that bill tell YNAB what category that bill goes into. And so let's say that it goes into groceries. Then what happens is YNAB will deduct that amount from what I had allocated for groceries. So it's helpful in that. The cool thing is we have at various times used credit cards that we pay off monthly, which is very important, to earn money back. We use that money for Christmas. So that's one of the ways I pay for our Christmas every year is there's 2 credit cards I use. I pay them off every month, but I get points back or money back that I can use. So what YNAB does when you use a credit card is it goes in, you tell it what category that expense came from. It will take the money from that category and transfer it directly into your credit card payment account. You don't have to think about it. It does it automatically for you. That way you are not spending over and above your means each month, even with these credit cards. And that makes a huge difference. So we really love that for YNAB. Also, something else it lets you do is it lets you set goals. So if I am going on vacation next year and I want to have $3,000 in a vacation fund, then I can tell YNAB, okay, by June of next year, I want to have $3,000 in this fund. And it will each month remind me how much money I need to put in. And if one month I don't put in quite enough, the next month it recalculates what do I need to have to put in to make sure that I am at that 3,000 by whatever the date is that I put in, June of next year or some other date. So that's another feature that I really, really love. But then it also, let's say that you're spending and you didn't spend as much on gasoline this month, but you overspent on groceries. It lets you move that money. So again, you're still within your budget. You're still living within your means, but it lets you move that money so that you don't have a deficit in one and an overage in another. The other thing that I really love about YNAB is it has a feature called the age of your money. Now, what the age of your money is if you earned money today and you put it into your bank account, okay, once you've spent all the rest of your money in your bank account, until you get to that money you put in today, when you start spending it, that is the age of your money. So think of it this way. If you go to the grocery store and they have those soup dispensers, you know what I'm talking about? Where you put the soup in at the top and it rolls all the way down. So when you put your money in the top, it's like putting that can at the top. How long does it take between the time you put that in at the top and the time it gets all the way to the bottom where you pull it out to use? So it's a great metric because you can see how quickly you are spending your money. And for us, we've been using YNAB for probably 7 or 8 years now. And we have had everything from 20 days, which means that we're not living within our means, all the way to like 93 days. And then I tell you what, when we were starting out, we would watch it go up one more day and it was just like a celebration because we had that, we're making progress, and then we'd watch it go up another day. And so every time that was just it made it fun for us, almost like a game. How long can we go between when our money comes in and when we spend it? So that helps because anything that you find a way to make it fun, it actually helps you stick with it longer. So that's one of the things that we love about YNAB. So that's a big thing that has helped us to manage our money better.
And I think sometimes you just need to find the right tool. And when you find that tool, it really can make a difference. And especially, when you add your goals in there and some opportunity to celebrate, I think it helps the process along.
We used to use Quicken for ours. And I don't know how many people have used Quicken before, but it's like an electronic checkbook. And I'll tell you what, every single month we were missing things. Like somehow a receipt wouldn't get home, and then we would be short by $300 at the end of the month, even though it looked like we were good. And I struggled with that so much. But as soon as we switched to YNAB, it made life so much easier for me. And so that's one of the reasons why I highly recommend YNAB, is because it has simplified our life so much, and it actually saves a ton of time. So one of the things that we talk about in adaptive prepping is we give a background, some general tips for every set, for every issue that we're dealing with. And then I do three things. I talk about what do we add, what do we take away, and what do we adapt. So for money, let's talk a little bit about what we add. So when we're dealing with money, one of the first things that everybody should add is an emergency fund. So what is an emergency fund? According to Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, an emergency fund is a cash reserve. This is a quote, a cash reserve that's specifically set aside for unplanned expenses or financial emergencies. Some common examples include car repairs, home repairs, medical bills, or loss of income. In general, emergency savings can be used for large or small unplanned bills or payments that are not a part of your routine monthly expenses and spending, end quote. That's a lot of fancy words to say an emergency fund is how you are going to take care of those unexpected expenses that you weren't planning on. So why do we need one of those? Well, all right, Murphy. Have you guys heard of Murphy?
Yes, we have.
Murphy's Law. He's a friend of ours.
Yes, Murphy tends to nip at my heels at different times. And sometimes he goes a while before he gets frustrated, but man, he comes back with a vengeance then, and he lets me know that things are not good. So Murphy happens. So if you don't know what I'm talking about Murphy, Murphy's Law says if something can go wrong, it will. And there are times it feels like that happens a lot. One of the reasons why we have an emergency fund is because of Murphy. So one time, when we were living in St. Louis, we had a back room that had a mostly flat ceiling or mostly flat roof. And so we noticed water starting to leak in, and sure enough, we needed a repair. We called our insurance company, and our deductible was $1,000, which meant that we had to have $1,000 in order for the repairs to be done. And so that's a great example of why you need an emergency fund, even something like that. Car repairs, we all have them. We moved down here. Now both of our cars have their check engine lights on, and money is really tight. Oh. Having an emergency fund helps with those things. So that's one of the reasons why we have that emergency fund, because not only does it take care of the financial aspect of it, it also takes care of the stress aspect of it. Because when you have something go wrong and you have the money to handle it, what does it do to your stress levels?
It just brings it way down
so far. Yes. And so when we have this emergency fund, not only is it going to take care of the finances, but it helps reduce your stress. And I don't know about you guys, but sometimes stress levels can just be so high. So having a way to reduce that is a huge boon. So we talked about why we need an emergency fund. So how do you use an emergency fund? You want to throw out some ideas there?
Well, I know of people who have used the emergency fund to fund a vacation or something that they just saw at the store that they just really want to have.
That is not me. So I don't know.
I'm not talking about her. I'm just know of people who they build the emergency fund, but temptation gets the best of them. So we're not going to do that.
Right.
And in our case, our emergency fund is always separate from our regular money. It's not kept in the same account. It takes more work to get to that emergency fund.
But I know, a lot of people need that. They lose a job. Just suddenly they're out of work. One of the two, or just themselves if they're single. Whatever the case may be, you lose a job unexpectedly. That throws a big wrench in things.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. So we use an emergency fund for an emergency. That's the big thing. Guys, you know what, the way Dave Ramsey put it at one point was, you know what, December 25th is the same date every year. Christmas is not an emergency. So
Right.
don't use your emergency fund for Christmas. Be putting aside money in a different thing, which we're going to talk about in just a second, so that you have that money set aside. Emergency funds are for emergencies only. Just like you guys were saying, I suggest you keep your emergency fund either in a different account, or even we have gone to a different bank, so that in order for us to get money out of it, we either have to transfer from one bank to another, which takes at least 24 hours, or we have to go to the bank and take it out. So that's how we've kept our emergency fund separate, because yes, it is so easy to say, oh, you know what, we've got that money in the emergency fund, we'll just refund it when we have the ability to. And this way it makes us stop and pause and think before we actually go spend that money. But here's another thing that you need to add. So besides your emergency fund, add a sinking fund. Now, this is what a sinking fund is. According to Dave Ramsey, a sinking fund is a strategic way to save money by setting aside little bits each month. Sinking funds work like this. Every month, you'll set aside in one or multiple categories money to be used at a later date. With a sinking fund, you save a small amount for a certain block of time before you spend it. So thinking of sinking funds. So if we have Christmas, and we know Christmas comes every December 25th, and you want to spend $200 per person, or $100 per person, or whatever it is, 50, 75, 300, whatever it is, you want to spend that much per person in your family, then you say, okay, how much money do I need to put aside every month so that I can make that goal and have that money in my checking account by October or November, however you want to do it. So that's one of the ways that you can use a sinking fund. We have used a sinking fund. One of the ways we use it is for vacation fund. When we had the ability to, we would come to Pensacola on vacation yearly or every other year. And I knew about how much money it would cost, because we would get an Airbnb. And then I knew about how much our food would cost and the fun things we wanted to do. So I'd say, okay, I want to have this much money in this fund by this time. And I used YNAB to help me get there. So that's one thing that we've used it for. But let's talk about some more practical things. Car insurance. Our car insurance comes due every 6 months. And the company that we are currently with, we can't pay monthly. I really wish we could, but we can't pay monthly. So with car insurance, I take, and I'm like, okay, I know how much it is in 6 months. And then every month I put 1/6 into that account. So that way I make sure at the end of those 6 months, I've got the money I need for my car insurance. Or if you own a house, your property taxes. So whatever it is for the year, take and divide it by 12. And then your goal each month is to put 1/12 into that fund. So it could be property taxes, car repairs, home improvement projects, any of those things. But a sinking fund is integral to making sure that you are not overspending on other things, because, oh, guess what? I have $2,500 that I need for car insurance next month. I don't know where that's coming from. That's a big problem. So that sinking fund is a way to take care of that without the stress.
And it seems like what we're avoiding there is debt, because you get to that point and then you say, oh, well, it's going to have to go on the credit card, which then just puts you behind the 8 ball over and over and over again. So this sinking fund is just an excellent way to plan for those kinds of things that you know you're going to have to do.
But
love
it requires discipline.
It does
because
require
if you
discipline.
see that money in the bank, that's not the reality of the money that you have.
Absolutely. When we first moved here, I was so overwhelmed with everything. We had the move, we had a new job that we started, we had a new church that we were going to, we had a new neighborhood we were in, we had to learn all the different things. I let YNAB go for 6 months, and I just watched our checking account, right? Thinking, I'm good. I see how much is in there. We're good. So finally, about a month ago, I went in and I reset up YNAB, set up a whole new budget, got myself back onto it. And you know what? My checking account says one thing, but when I'm looking in YNAB and I see that my property taxes are due at the end of next month, that our car insurance is due in 2 months, you start going, whoa, that's not nearly enough money. And so that's why we have these sinking funds, and we even keep ours in YNAB, and it makes it so easy to see what we have, what we need, how much more we need to put in. But let's say that you're like, okay, Karen, you've sold me on the sinking fund. I have no money. So let's talk about some ways to fund that sinking fund. One of them is called capital, and it's spelled Qapital. So capital will transfer money from your bank account to a savings account that you've set up, depending on the rules you set up. So, for example, if you want to transfer $10 every week from one account to another, Capital will do that for you. Capital can also say, okay, you set up a rule saying every time I go to Starbucks or every time I go to this fast food chain, I want you to take $5 from my checking account and move it into my savings account. And you set up the rules and Capital does it for you. So that's one way that you can save money, because put money aside without even thinking about it. So that is one tool possibly for you to use. There's another thing called Acorns. Now, Acorns is more about saving for the long term. But again, you take little bits of money, you spend your money. Let's say you spend $6.45. So what they do is they take that other 55 cents to get you to the next dollar, and they put it in an investment account for you. So that's another thing that you can consider is something like Acorns. All right, so we've talked about how we can keep a little bit of our money, how we can revamp some things. Let's talk about a little bit about bringing more money in. So how can we increase our income? There's a couple of things that you could consider doing. One, if you wanted to, you could consider getting like a part-time job one night a week, just one night a week. So you still have your family time, but you're bringing in some extra money so that you are putting more toward either your emergency fund, your debt, if you have it, your sinking funds, whatever it is. So you could consider that, but maybe you're not going to find that part-time job that is just right for you. Maybe you could consider something like a side hustle. All of us have something that we're good at. All of us do, whether it is podcasting or writing, or it is crocheting, or it is knitting or baking, no matter what it is, it can become some sort of side hustle. Since we moved to Pensacola, and my husband has been without a job for 9 months now, guys. I mean,
Wow.
it has been so hard. He has put out so many resumes. So many different things. And he has been without a job for 9 months. If it wouldn't have been for my side hustle, we would not have made it. But it was because of that side hustle. It's because of that book income. It's not big. It really isn't. But at the same time, if we wouldn't have had that, we would not still have a positive account balance in our checking account. So whatever it is, I have friends who do knitting and crocheting of different things, and they sell them, and they sell really, really well. And that's one of the things that they do for their side hustle. I had another friend who started a side hustle of an in-home bakery, and now she owns a shop on a town square in a little town in Tennessee. But that's how she started, as a side hustle. And now she has a full-blown business. And because she owns it, she sets her hours. She only works so many days a week. She doesn't work other days, and she can do that for herself. So find, what is it that you do well? Ask yourself that, and then do a little bit of research to see how you can make money taking that thing that you do well and increase your income that way. And not only that, if you do well at it and you love it, then you're going to be more apt to want to stick with it. You're going to want to do those things, and it makes all the difference in the world. All right, we've talked about increasing our income. We've talked about ways that we can save, but some of you might be looking at me going, Karen, those are great. I don't have enough money to feed my family now. Or, you know what? My electric bill was $100 more than I planned on, or my gas bill, because it's cold. I need money now. How do I do that? So let me give you a couple of tips about having money now. When I got started in preparedness, it was all because of couponing. And one of the things that I learned when I was teaching people how to coupon is, if you will start by shopping your pantry first, you will save money at the grocery store. So again, for us this month, money is kind of tight. So I've already told my husband, I said, okay, I'm taking my mom grocery shopping on Thursday, because that's one of the things we do. We go out every Thursday. I take her grocery shopping. I said, but this week, I'm not going to go grocery shopping. We are only going to eat from what is already in our house. That's going to save us a chunk of money, because depending on how things go, that's $100 to $150 to feed all of my family, because everybody's still coming and going. And that makes a difference. Start by shopping in your house. And it doesn't even have to be a whole meal. Go to your pantry. Do you have tomato sauce? Do you have seasonings? Do you have maybe either some ground beef, something like that? You can make spaghetti and the noodles cost you almost nothing. So look at it from that perspective. There is a website out there where you go and you put in the ingredients that are in your pantry and it spits out recipes that you can make right now.
That's cool.
That would be
That's,
fun.
that's fun.
If you can take what's already on hand and you can make a week or 2 weeks worth of meals out of that, that's going to save you all that grocery money now. It's going to make that difference now. And that's a big deal.
This is a great point you're making. It's kind of an emergency fund, and that's what we encourage people
Your
to
food
do.
storages?
Yeah. You stash that away when times are good and you've got that built up. There are times when you're going to need to draw on that when you can't necessarily replace it right at the moment, but you have it there to meet that short-term need. This is awesome. Thank you.
We have our food storage, but even I know for us, okay, I stock up stuff even in my pantry. Oh, you know what? Spaghetti sauce is on sale. I'm not just going to get one. I'm going to get 4. Okay. And so I've got this spaghetti sauce, or I planned on making a meal and something happened. And so I have the ingredients to that meal, but I don't think to put that on my menu for the next week. So I have that. I could use it. So the next thing actually I was going to say is to create a menu. Because you create the menu, you can go there and you can get what you already have. But then past that, then create a grocery list from what is on your, what you actually need. And the point of that is if you have that grocery list and if you go into it with the mindset, I'm not buying anything not on this list, you're going to save yourself money. Because I don't know about you guys, but I know for me, oh, that looks really good. I forgot to put that on. You know what? My kids need popcorn this week. I forgot to put it on the list, so I pick up the popcorn. Or I'm like, oh, my love language is gifts. And so I see Christmas time, I see eggnog, and my daughter loves eggnog. So I like to get those things, get that for her, get chocolate for my other, but if I can actually stick to my grocery list, I would cut my grocery budget down exponentially.
And there is strategy in this from the stores. They know how to work you, how to get you to walk through the aisles and pick things that you probably don't need or want necessarily, but at the moment it seems like this list keeps you on track.
Or there are things that you think you need that you really don't. When we did our 90-day without shopping challenge, and we lived off of just what's in our garden and what's in our pantry, our food storage, right? For 90 days, it changed my way of thinking. And I didn't realize how much I was buying on impulse and how much I was programmed to get stuff, right? Because for snacks for the kids, they go to dance right after school. And so I would have to make something at home and put in the containers and, feed them on the way to dance because you can't go buy anything, right? Everything, lunches were homemade. It changed everything for us. And we saved so much money even after replacing what we had used. And I think that's filtered into our life still.
That's awesome. Because there is so much that we get that we really just don't need. Something else that really helps me to cut back, let's say that you have a hard time not buying anything that's not on your list. One thing that did help me was I would print out a paper list. Okay, so even from a lot of our grocery apps, we can print out our list. So I would print out a paper list. And then as I went through the grocery store, I wrote down a running tally of how much I was spending. Because when I would only be a third of the way through and I'm seeing $75, I'm not going to pick up that thing that I might want. Whereas if we don't do that, we get to the front and they say, oh, your bill's $245. And you're like,
ouch.
Oh, well, I'm here. I got to spend it now. So having that printed out list, and the difference between doing that and doing it on a calculator is I would always forget on the calculator, did I add this thing in? you
Mhm.
know. But if I have a printed out list and I'm writing it down as I go along, I can see, oh yeah, I remember this was about $1.50. Here's my $1.50, you know, so I could see that I had actually tallied up what was in my cart. And then set yourself a limit before you go in. Okay, my grocery budget, because YNAB's told me this is what my grocery budget is for this week. You know, keep it to that. And that way you've got it right there as you're going along. Also, one of the things that we had done at one point, it doesn't work in our lives now, was we did once a month shopping. So that way I had my grocery budget. I went in and I spent it all in one fell swoop. And you know what? We didn't go back to the grocery store for a month. So if I do that, I'm saving a ton of money because you're not going in and seeing those impulse buys every week. You know, you're only there once. You know what? When you only have so much cheese and it's, you know, 2 weeks in and it's gone, guess what, guys? No cheese. Whereas if I was going grocery shopping every week, you know, then, oh, I just pick up another thing of cheese. It's not a big deal, you know. So that's one of the things. And then the other thing that might be a detriment, or that some people may look at as a detriment to that, is like your fresh foods. So like for us, there's certain fresh fruits and vegetables that we get regularly. So what I would say is buy the ones that are going to last longer and use those. And then if you want to use fruits and vegetables that don't last as long, just use them in the first couple of weeks. And then maybe get a couple more canned goods for later, depending on how you want to do it. Or pull out some of your home canned applesauce for those last couple of weeks, however that's going to work. But if you can do that once a month, if it fits for you guys, that's another way of doing it and making it saving money now. I know it looks like, oh, I went and I spent $600 at the grocery store for a month. But you know what? If you're not going the rest of the month and, you know, you're saving, normally you'd budget, you know, 800 or 1,000 or whatever it is, then you're saving that $400, which is a really big deal. All right, we talked about what we add. Now, what do we remove? So let's start by taking away extra expenses. Now, one way we can do that is just by looking at what we spend and say, you know what, guys, all right, so I don't need to go, you know, in our case right now, it's Circle K to get a soda. It's only 79 cents, right? But you know what, if we do that 4 times a week, you know, that's a big deal. That adds up. So that's one way we could do it. But there's another way we can do it. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Rocket Money. But Rocket Money, you go in and you give it access to your checking account, and it will go through and find every single reoccurring thing that you pay. And sometimes you're going to find out that you actually have 2 accounts for the same thing. At one point, I had 2 different McAfee accounts, and I didn't know it because they were sending it to me more, like they said, your subscription's almost up. So I would re-up my subscription because I don't want viruses on my computer, right? Because that's downtime that would be very frustrating. So I re-upped it, and then I found out, wait, 2 months later, I got this thing saying, hey, you need to renew your McAfee account for a year. I'm like, wait, you know, so I didn't even know I had 2 McAfee accounts. So, you know, it will find those for you, and it will find other things that you just didn't think about. You know, I know for my business, I actually have like 4 or 5 recurring things that I pay for, you know, but there are things that you might not realize are recurring payments. And you'd be like, I never use that. And right from Rocket Money, you can say cancel, and it will cancel it for you. So it makes it really simple for you to do that. So that's something to consider. Remove your extra subscriptions that you're not using. And Rocket Money is a great tool to do that if you want to. Another thing that you might want to remove, now I wouldn't say remove your bank, but if you're paying money each month for a bank account, find a different bank. In Illinois, we had a certain account, but we had to keep a certain amount in our checking account, but that was never an issue. We always did. But since we've moved, and we're still trying to make sure everything gets moved from one account to another, because you know how that goes, where it's like all different things and you don't want to default on anything and you don't want anything to be an issue. So we've kept that account, and I get charged $6 every month for that account just sitting there. So we're finally tying up the last loose ends, but doggone it, it takes a while. So if your bank is charging you money to use your own money, find another bank that won't, because there are plenty that won't. So that's one thing you can do. Also, make sure that you are looking at your bank account regularly. When I was using YNAB, one month I started seeing these 39-cent charges coming. It's like, what in the world is that? So, I mean, I I watched it and I'm like, okay, it's 39 cents. I'm not going to worry about it this time. But then it happened like a week later. And then it happened like 2 weeks later. And then I saw like $1.50 charge. So I call my bank and I'm like, what's the deal with this? And here, come to find out, all of those were going through a PayPal account. And if a PayPal account is paying to an account in another country, like, so Canva is actually in Europe, it's based in Europe. So when it came through PayPal, PayPal charged me money to send the money to a country in Europe. And so I was finding all of these charges. So I was like, well, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to find another way to pay where I'm not going to have those charges. So by watching my checking account, I saw what was going on and I was able to take care of it before it blew up into a big deal. So make sure that you're doing that. And then another really, it's going to be one of those duh moments, pay your bills quickly. And the reason I say that is this: if you get a bill, I don't know if you're like me, if I get something in and it doesn't happen right now, you might as well forget it. And then I'm going to be paying late fees and I'm going to be paying other fees. You know what? It's going to save you so much headache. If you get a bill in, pay the bill now so that you don't have to worry about those late fees. You're going to be saving yourself a lot of money. So do that. Our youngest is still at home. He is 13. He doesn't have a cell phone yet. But there are times when, either he or one of the other kids are here and we're going to go somewhere else just for a little bit. And we want him to be able to call us, but we don't want him having a cell phone yet. We have something called an UMA. And I don't know if you've heard of that. It's OOMA. And what it does is it allows us to plug a phone into it, but it is voice over IP and it only costs us $6 a month, 6 and change. So that way we have the peace of mind knowing that my son can reach us if we go somewhere else, or if let's say we're over talking to the neighbors and somebody got hurt and he doesn't want to come outside, whatever it is, he has that cell phone, or he has the phone that he can call us on because we have the UMA and it costs us all of, like I say, $6 a month. So that gives us, like I say, that peace of mind without actually giving him a cell phone. One other way that we can take away fees and something and other things like that when it comes to money is, instead of hiring a full-fledged professional, see if you can hire professionals in training or somebody who is tangentially related to what you're doing. So for example, beauty schools have, if you go in and you want to get a haircut or you want to get a perm or you want to get a color, the instructor's right there to help the student. But at the same time, you don't pay as much because you have a student who is doing your hair. So that's one way that you can save a lot of money. Because I know for me, I can pay like literally $140 for a perm. But if you go to a beauty school, then it's going to be a whole lot less. Or let's say that you want to do something like get an app developed. Do you know somebody who's getting ready to graduate from college with a degree in that specific computer design? They're going to do it for you for less because they're going to be able to put it on their resume and they're going to be able to show that off. So, consider things like that in order to save money as well. So we talked about what we add, what we subtract. So let's talk about what we adapt a little bit. So a couple of things that we can adapt to make things easier for us is, one, adapt your paycheck. Most places will let you go in and they have the direct deposit, right? Well, most places will actually let you do 2 or 3 direct deposits. So if you have your paycheck and you want to split it, like 90-10 or 75-25, you could have 75% put in your main bank account, and then in your other bank, like we talked about earlier, have that 25% put over there. You're having money set aside every month from your paycheck. That makes a big difference, because if you can live on 75%, that other 25 is going to start earning you interest and other things like that. But that is one way to do it, is if you divide up your paycheck. Another thing that you can adapt is prices. Now, a lot of us think, okay, prices are fairly fixed. And yes, but no. I know that when we moved down here, we kept the same insurance carrier. So when we moved from Illinois to Florida, we were with one particular insurance carrier, and they wanted, I'm thinking it was like $800 a month for, now granted, we have 5 drivers, we have 5 cars. So, I mean, there's a reason, I get that, but $800 a month. Well, we switched to another carrier. Now, this is why we have to pay for 6 months at a time, but we switched to another carrier and it cost us, I think it was $2,100 for 6 months for all 5 vehicles.
See, you got to shop
Yeah.
around. You got to shop around. You got to pay attention.
You really do. And don't just assume that you've got the best deal. Even if you work with a company, let's say that you have an HVAC company, call them and say, hey, if I refer somebody to you, would you give me a discount? You never know unless you ask. And it certainly can't hurt to ask. So, find those ways that you can make the difference by shopping around and figuring out if there's a better way to do it or a better deal, or find ways that you can get things for free or anything like that. Look for that way. One great example is the buckets that we put our food in, right? Those 5-gallon buckets. Yes, you can go buy them. Yes, the prices keep going up. But all right, if you go to some place like Chick-fil-A and say, hey, can I have your pick-up buckets? Most of them, if they have them, they're going to give them to you absolutely for free. So you could get the pickle buckets. Or we used to go to bakeries, and bakeries would give you the frosting tubs for free. So there are all these places. Any place that's going to use pickles, go ask them if you can have it for free. There are ways that you can get things for free that you might not think about. If you want wood for free, look for places that give away old pallets, and then use those pallets. Now, you don't want to use them in your garden because there's chemicals in it that'll leach into your food, which you don't want to do. But there are other ways that you can use those pallets. So find things that you can get for free, or something that you can get for free because it's not quite working, and figure out how to fix it. So those are ways that we can help the prices be more what we need them to be.
So what we're talking about here is using creativity, right? Get creative and, look out there and see there's more than one way. As my friend used to say, there's more than one way to skin a cat without getting fur in your teeth. And, so we'll get creative and find these kinds of things. This is excellent. This is some great ideas to help tame the expenses.
Yeah, there's local marketplaces, right? There's like Facebook or whatever, and there's garage sales. There's just, even with the whole clothes things with our kids, we had people who knew, we've always had a lot of kids, right? But they had kids bigger than ours, and they just get rid of the clothes, and they're like, hey, you want some? I'm like, yes. And then it gets out there. And I mean, there's all kinds of different ways to save money if you just look for them. I usually pray about it, actually. I'll say, Heavenly Father, I really need this. Will you help me get it? And it's amazing. It just works.
And then do the same thing for others.
Yeah.
Bless other lives as the kids grow out of those, then send them, as long as they're still in good shape, make sure that we're helping our community and blessing
Very
lives.
good point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And along the same veins as being creative, one of the things that I don't think we do a lot of, especially if we live in the city, but it's actually happening a lot more in the country, is barter. Look for ways that you can barter. When we lived on acreage, we had 8 apple trees. And I tell you, no matter how much we actually did it for canning, we could not have canned all of those apples on all of those 8 trees. We had somebody come to us and said, hey, can I pick 2 bushels of apples and I will give you, it was like 20 pounds of fish. We couldn't have used that anyway, but yet he had fish. And so we got fish for our freezer and he got apples. So that was one way we did some bartering. Another time we had a tree that actually fell. So we had a guy who came to us and said, hey, I'll tell you what, I will cut the entire tree up for you. Can I take half the wood? We're like, yeah, absolutely. So we got free labor. He got free wood, so it worked out for both of us. So look for ways that you can barter. And, if you see somebody who's got a fruit tree and it doesn't look like they're doing anything with it, go and ask them if you can swap them some fruit from that for something else. Don't be hesitant to ask either. I found with me, other people wanted to barter with me, but I didn't think about bartering because that's not where I had come from. I came from a do-it-yourself. It's like that 3-year-old, I do it myself. So that wasn't a part of who I was. And now it's like the more I see it, the more I want to look for ways to be able to do that. And then honestly, the last thing that I have on my list is to learn to do things yourselves. Because, like, for example, when we moved out to the farm, when we moved out there, it was like everything broke. I don't care what it was, it broke. Whether it was our lawnmower that we bought brand new or whether it was something else, it just, everything broke. But you know what? My husband became a master at YouTube and tools. and he learned to fix almost anything out there. And even now, we've got a lawnmower sitting up in our garage waiting for money to buy the part so that he can fix it, because he's watched the videos, he's figured out what was wrong, he's waiting just to buy that one part to fix it. And that makes a big difference, because if we had to take the lawnmower into a repair shop to get it repaired, oh goodness gracious, not only would we have to pay for the part, we'd probably have to pay, a surcharge on the part and for the labor. And my husband was able to figure out how to do it himself. So I hope that all of these different ways of looking at money and looking at our finances and realizing that we, like you said, Jonathan, we can be creative and figure things out. I hope all of this has helped you guys today.
This has really been good. And I think this will bless so many lives. This is just truly amazing to find resources like you, people who are creative and who have sought out all these kinds of things. So we sure appreciate you. We've got great aspirations for our audience, and you're such a great tool to help teach and help them learn, because together we can all make this difference. We can get there if we're all working together. And this book is really amazing.
Yeah, you did a really good job.
Adaptive prepping really just means finding the way to get it done. And you do that so well. So thank you so much.
And prepping is really preparing for the future, right? Just advanced preparations that help you be better ready to handle tomorrow. And I think that's amazing. So thank you so much, Karen. And now, do you want to tell our audience a little bit about where they can find you real quick before we close?
Absolutely. So you can find me at AREYOU preparedmama.com. You can also find all of my books, Adaptive Prepping is one of them, on Amazon. So I have A Year Without the Grocery Store. I have A Year Without the Grocery Store's companion workbook, Mom on the Run, and Adaptive Prepping. And all of them are available on Amazon.
Awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And for our audience, your question of the day today, considering all the things that you've learned, what tip are you going to take and implement in your life from today's discussion? Comment below. And thanks for being part of the solution.